Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Elseworlds Exchange. I'm Sal, and with me, of course, as always, is Joel, and our special guest today is Scott from NerdSync. Hello, Scott. Thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
It's a world's finest situation here. Worlds are colliding all over the place.
That's right. We got Batman, Superman, and I guess Aquaman, given your comments on Twitter lately.
Oh, I will take it. Absolutely.
Do you want to talk about that a little bit? Do you want to plug your plans for an Aquaman podcast?
I mean, it's very early stages to the point where I literally just said, "Wouldn't it be neat if?"
Yeah.
I was talking with a friend of mine, and I thought, I really want to do a very niche podcast where it's just I talk about Aquaman comics and Aquaman news every week.
There's a lot of stuff to talk about. Aquaman has had a strange and interesting history. I wrote an article for someone else, which hasn't been turned into a video yet, on the history of Aquaman from the golden age to now, and I'm like, man, a lot of stuff happened to him.
Yeah. He's been through a lot. He's been around for forever. He's one of the lineage characters that's been around since the beginning.
It's true. And they always try and reinvent him and give him interesting stuff to do. He probably undergoes more reinventions than just about any hero. Where it's like, okay, well now he'll have a hook hand. Well now the book will be a magic book and he'll have a water hand.
That's true. Oh man. I mean, I don't know which one of those. I don't know if I like the magic side of Aquaman as much as a lot of people do. I mean, I'm glad. One thing I'm really glad about is with DC Rebirth, they're not. I was expecting them to go full Jason Momoa with his design.
Oh yeah,
but they did beforehand. Fans rejected, and they're like, "Okay, Dan Abnett's back, and we're going back to what
good."
You like
Nobody wants fake Conan, Aquaman in their comics.
I feel so bad for Cullen Bunn because he is such a good writer on everything else, but they dealt him a terrible hand with that. It's like, okay, make this thing that everyone will reject and rebel against. Make it work.
Yeah,
but you already gave me the Lobo people here. Well, now you get this too.
Yeah, they're gonna come after me. These are bikers. They like Lobo. What are you doing?
And Lobo is slowly just morphing back into old Lobo. I like in that Tom Taylor Batman Superman. So it's like, oh, boy band Lobo is just slowly turning into biker Lobo.
You could just
he's grown out his hair. He's jacked up a bit more.
Yeah, that'd be funny if he's going through a phase. He got I got dumped and now I'm getting into metal.
But then next week it'll be New Wave Lobo.
But we didn't come here to talk about Aquaman, although it is a subject that we can apparently do an entire show on. We are here to talk about Civil War, a upcomingly topical subject, and the kind of thematic elements that come from both stories. It's funny because Civil War is basically, if you look at it really, really cynically and objectively, it's a cash grab. It's a way to take all the superheroes and have them fight each other and make a whole bunch of money.
And have a reason for it.
Exactly. But the reason is actually rather compelling, especially if you look at the 2005 Civil War, and I guess to a lesser extent the movie Civil War that's coming out, where we're talking about security versus privacy, whether or not what's the cost of freedom, what's the cost of your personal liberties.
Considering that story was right there during the Bush administration, and the fallout is that they killed Captain America at the height of the Bush administration.
To the point where Bush appears in issue 1 or 2 of Civil War.
Yeah, I think it's probably the most politicized comics had gotten for a very long time. I remember CNN covering the original Civil War and newspapers covering it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because it's not, I mean, when it comes to big events like that, it's not like they were fighting some sort of giant monster or the end of the universe. It was literally just about policy and ideology.
And fighting a real world issue. That was what the heroes were fighting that week. A question that we will all have to deal with.
Well, it's also it's the concept of fighting an idea, which here in America is a concept that we've been dealing with, I'd say, since probably the 80s with the war on drugs, and then later on, of course, the war on terror. These wars on ideas, wars on ghosts and war on obesity, things you can't possibly win.
On literacy.
Yeah, that's right.
You literally can't fight these wars, and what do you do when you have costumed characters that all they do is fight? And what do you do when they have to fight an idea? Well, they usually wind up punching each other.
And characters who are symbols in and of themselves.
Yeah, and what do they do when they actually take a stance? It's funny, the juggling of Captain America and his whole ideologies.
And to see which characters ended up on which teams, which I think is why this is a very divisive event as well. It's because it kind of casts politics and be like, oh, I love this character. Oh, but they don't agree with me politically, though.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate.
I agree with that. I mean, I'm not a particularly big fan of Iron Man in the comics,
right.
but but I found myself siding with Iron Man in Civil War. Like, and I know that's kind of an unpopular opinion because they do.
He was basically the villain of that.
Yeah,
story.
I know they paint him to be the villain, and that's I don't know.
And that's a weakness of the story right there. Is that by the end, Iron Man and his group are just straight up the villains. I mean, they start off, from an understandable place where it's like, hey, we want to avert tragedy, and we're going to give, SHIELD training and funding to new heroes and everything. And all you got to do, guys, is register with the government. Obviously, Iron Man being so rich and so stuck up his own ass, he doesn't realize guys like Spider-Man and Daredevil can't register with the government because if they do, Kingpin will kill their family.
Well, it's funny because, I remember that whole thing, and I remember it being a lot more complicated than that because in the case of Iron Man kind of being like, you have to register. I remember my first problem, which then of course evolved into more problems with the whole Registration Act, was mandatory military service. Because that's the thing that really got me, where they're like, oh, no. If you have powers, you have to join SHIELD. It's literally like, if you can bench press this amount of weight, you have to join the military.
We're reinstating the draft is what we're doing.
That's literally but a superhuman draft. And can you imagine a Marvel universe where they're like, well, like Amadeus Cho Hulk, we're just gonna point you at Afghanistan and just let you go.
Just deal with it. Just deal with all the problems over there. Just Hulk out and deal with it.
That was where I had a problem, but it's funny because they did kind of demonize Iron Man. It was hard to rationalize siding with Iron Man. Not to attack, Scott, your position,
but that's totally fine. I mean, one of the things that I try to argue is I'm not necessarily Team Iron Man. Like, I don't necessarily agree with 100% of everything that he
started with the best intentions, but by the end he went too far.
And that's the thing.
I agree with his initial intentions.
For me, I also, as I got older and as I started to recognize the reality of superheroes, I was like, man, Iron Man's right in as much as there needs to be accountability. I liked the idea of Iron Man kind of being like, no, like you can't have a New Warrior situation where young children with powers sign a deal with MTV and make a reality show and they wind up killing people. You need to have training, you need to have accountability. But I also noticed it's funny because while I had a problem with the military service thing, Iron Man had ulterior plans in place, which included the initiative and the academy and being like, no. And also the secret identities. The Kingpin wouldn't necessarily kill Spider-Man or Daredevil's families if he doesn't know who they are. He has to break into a military database.
But that stuff happens all the time, though.
It's true, but I mean, this brings up a really interesting point that I feel gets it's kind of a misconception about the Civil War storyline. A lot of people think that the main thing was that every hero had to out themselves, give out their secret identity to the public, which is not
Spider-Man
true.
chose to do it, but
yes, as a favor to Tony.
Yeah, there was
a show of good faith.
His reasoning was kind of flimsy, and of course, as we know, that was more editorial control. I think that Quesada's wouldn't it be cool though if Spider-Man unmasked and then we could do all these other things with it? And it's would he ever do that? And I want to know what the mic drop moment was before they decided to do that. What was Miller's plan before they made it Spider-Man? By the way, iconic moment, incredible story potential. Spider-Man outing himself, but completely boneheaded in as much as that's not what this Registration Act is asking you to do.
No,
right.
It kind of confused the issue, didn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's still something that people are arguing about today. I don't think superheroes should give up their secret identities to the public. That's not what we're asking.
It's so funny that when you look at the movies now, none of those main Avengers have secret identities.
No!
It's so not an issue. And yet as we go into the Civil War movie, it's obviously you can't use this as the backbone of your issue because no one has secret identities.
It has to be all about the main issue. It has to be about accountability, which you really, it's funny because if they've been doing it deliberately, they've been playing the long game for a while where they've been implying that Civil War has been coming, even in shows like Jessica Jones, Daredevil or SHIELD. Even in SHIELD, a couple of seasons have been the team. Coulson's team has been kind of split down the middle in their opinions about people with powers and accountability. And I'm
even
that's
people who are friends on everything else, like Fitz and Simmons, hugely disagree on this issue. And you're like, neither one of you are wrong. And it's funny, when they do fight in the show, I'm like, this is the kind of stuff people fight Civil Wars about.
Exactly. Yep. Oh my God. No, when the Jessica Jones thing happened, when the parents attack her and they're like, my parents were killed in the battle. I'm like, here it comes. She's not going to be in the movie. That's too bad.
Aw.
At least that's my guess. I was hoping that the mic drop moment from Civil War the comic, Spider-Man outing himself, was going to be transferred to Daredevil, so that we can then establish season 3 of Daredevil where he has his identity out, because there's so many great stories of Daredevil
He's
where
been living with an out identity for so long. They've only kind of put the genie back in the bottle now in Daredevil, and they haven't explained how that happened.
And they keep doing it. I feel so bad for these people, because they're like, we have these really cool moments where he's always out as Daredevil, and then we always fix it and make it and undo it, just so they can have that moment again, so they can get another bite of the apple of Daredevil being exposed and how ruined his life can be.
Murdoch Papers is so good, that's why.
It's true.
Yep.
But yeah, it's funny because I think that while the new Civil War that's coming out, the movie is going to be about accountability, and the comic that, of course, I'm sure totally by accident is coming out around the same time, is going to be unbelievably so. It's going to have a different theme. It's going to have a different idea about what ideology we're attacking, and in that case, it's about surveillance and about it's more Minority Report than it is.
And very fitting in this age of WikiLeaks and Edward Snowden and NSAs and who's watching who, and See, personally, I've always felt, as someone who works on the internet, is on the internet a lot, I just assume I'm being watched 24/7 all the time, so I don't do anything I don't want to be caught doing.
It's funny, but before we even get on that subject, I just wanted to say, that's where we're headed, but is the issue of security versus privacy over yet? Couldn't we still be talking about that? Don't we still have more to say on that subject? Must we jump off of that subject yet? Because I think that with the world of Edward Snowden and what he's revealed, and even the papers that have just been released just the other day, I can't remember what they're the Panama Papers, I think that's what they're called, where they released a whole bunch of information about where financials are being spent and who's involved. We're seeing that privacy is still being under attack. This isn't a thing where this is not a dead issue yet.
Right. I mean, it reminds me of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, how I think it was Charlie Day was talking about how a couple seasons ago they did an episode about guns and gun control or whatever, and then they are going to do another one soon because they're it's still an issue.
Right.
So we're just going to keep doing it.
South Park is another perfect example of that. They'll talk about an issue, then seasons later they'll do another topic, and oftentimes they'll reverse their position in episodes.
Yeah. Just because they got more information. And I think that's kind of really mature. I think it's cool that the movie didn't go, well, the comics did it, I have to do something else. No. This is an issue that still exists. It's just because it was kind of born about 15 years ago doesn't mean that it hasn't evolved and become heavier.
I do think that there's starting to be a generation gap in the idea of online privacy and everything, because I feel like when people like Joel, what you were saying, when you get online, you just kind of expect that you're being watched nowadays. So maybe it's not as big of a deal as someone I remember way back in the day, my parents would always tell me to never use my real name online, to, always try to hide everything. And I did that for the longest time until I started a YouTube channel. I was like, my name's Scott.
Especially as YouTubers, I'm sure we have a whole different view on this. I have a Twitter and an Instagram, and, I do daily updates on everything. People, my fans basically spy on me all the time and know me better than other people know.
Well, it's funny. They're not even spying. You're voluntarily handing over personal information.
And said, "Hey, come on in."
Well, it's funny. I remember I watch a couple of Periscopes. I think we're all on Periscope and follow all of them. But you can, if you don't turn off privacy, you are transmitting via Google Maps where you're periscoping from, and it's live. So if you're periscoping in a Starbucks somewhere and it says it's at Starbucks, people can come to you and get you, and you don't even know you're volunteering that information. That's hair-raising and terrifying. And linking it back to the subject, I don't know what a costumed character could do about it.
Yeah, that's true.
Because it's a perfect example. Our mutual buddy Rob, when you guys went out to WonderCon in LA, he basically periscoped the entire trip. I felt like I was with you guys.
That's true. And I think he solved the privacy issue, but before, you could just go to Rob's hotel room and get him. Oh boy, get him. Yeah. But it's funny because I feel like that's more terrifying than it was when Civil War was written, and we're already moving away from it.
Imagine going back in time and explaining Periscope to someone. You're going to walk around with a little device that streams to everywhere in the world, and if you don't turn off the privacy settings, people will know where you are, and you'll let it happen. You'll want to do it.
Well, look at the Facebook privacy settings on your phone. Not necessarily even Facebook like on desktop, but just the one on your phone, which I've uninstalled, by the way, because I just couldn't handle it anymore. Number one, it was eating my battery big time, but number two, it was also violating my constitutional rights.
There's a reason I don't have iTunes. Like, I do a bunch of shows that end up on iTunes, but I personally don't have iTunes just because they're like, hey, we're iTunes and we want to be your friend, but we also want to be in all your information and take over all your different devices and everything. We want to make sure you only use us at all times.
Oh, yeah.
But only because we're friends, guy. Come on.
Yeah, well, why do you need my microphone?
Reasons. That's why.
But yeah, it's scary. Oh, go ahead.
Well, perfect example, too. Another thing right in the headlines right now after that big terrorist shooting, the FBI wanted to get into those phones of the perpetrators, and they went to Apple for help, and Apple was like, no. Yeah. We're not going to, because it would be a massive breach of privacy and trust. And on one hand, I'm like, good for you for standing up to the FBI, Apple. But then on the other hand, I'm like, wait, they don't want the FBI in because they're already using that information and they're already in it. You're not really a saint here, Apple, so stop,
That's a good question.
Don't pat yourself on the back just yet.
That's a good subject, actually. What do you think about that? Like, what do you think about the FBI phone cracking issue? Because, like, it was my understanding that they could do it anyway.
They did end up doing it anyway.
Right, and I understand they used Israeli tactics, which I thought was kind of interesting. Like, there was
it's like a moot point now, but for a second there, it was a hot topic.
That's the question, because it kind of links back to actually Civil War and what they were talking about. Because it's like, it is literally, should we build in backdoor access and grant it to the government based on just our blind trust in them, and sacrifice any kind of privacy,
liberty for safety?
Yeah, and I think, Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, said that, his biggest concern was we could make this skeleton key that would unlock, hundreds of thousands or millions of devices.
Yeah.
And the problem is, that's scary to have something that powerful. Even if you put it in the hands of somebody you trust the most in the world, it can still be stolen. It can still be taken.
Exactly. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. And it's like, once we do this, once we fire this bullet, there's no taking it back.
Yeah.
Once it exists, it exists.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think some people on the other side were like, well, Apple can just, write it down for this one instance, and then I believe what they actually said was, and then just throw the piece of paper away in the fireplace or whatever. It's as if that's how it works.
Yeah, because that's not, no.
John Oliver did a great bit on this,
yeah.
and that was the joke from it, where he's just like, that's a bunch of people writing the laws on net privacy and net neutrality and everything.
No idea.
Are older people who don't understand the internet or how technology works.
Yeah, that's the most damning, is the people who are writing laws on information and technology. They have no fucking concept of what it is.
Sure.
These are people who can't program their VCRs,
which they shouldn't be able to do anyway, because who knows how to do that? People,
Nobody.
I never knew how to program my VCR, and that's obsolete. So
it just blinked 12 all the time. Yeah. That's all I needed to know.
It's funny because this topic has been kind of retreading itself over the last decade and redefining itself and kind of getting more and more complicated and terrifying. Mm-hmm. And it kind of makes me wonder, like, okay, so you're going to make this movie, Civil War. It's going to be based on, like, superhero accountability, which is not really that translatable to us. But is it all going to be about that, or is it going to be... Is there going to be a deeper issue at work here? Like, because I don't know if I can really, like, Scott, you were on Team Iron Man in the comics. I think that I am more on Team Iron Man in the movies at this point because
movie Tony has more of a good play about, accountability and everything.
He's more right. In this case, it's like, no. These monsters have power, and they're just running around, like, legitimately, like Tony Stark himself put on a suit of armor that he had orbiting the planet and broke a small country with it. And, like, what are we going to do about that?
Yeah, there needs to be some sort of regulation.
Absolutely.
One of the interesting things they keep from both the book and now will be translating into the movie, but in a different way. Obviously, one of the biggest acts of quote-unquote villainy from Comic Tony, when he's like, I'm going to create a secret Black Ops prison in the negative zone and put everyone I don't like there. And now in the movie... he's creating. I'm going to assume it's the Raft. I don't know if they've said it is. The Raft is totally like an Abu Ghraib stand-in for supervillains. We're going to create a secret off the books prison for supervillains now.
See, now it's funny. I noticed that there was a scene in one of the trailers. Do you guys watch the trailers? I don't want to give anything away. Yeah, but sure. There's a shot in one of the trailers where it's like underwater and there's like a little like it reminded me a little bit of the Pym prison where everyone's tiny.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm wondering if that's going to be in the play, where instead of them going to another dimension, like 42, it'll more be that they're using Pym particles, and this will be how they pull Ant-Man in, to shrink like aggressors and put them into not only rob them of their constitutional rights, but also rob them of like their
literally making them feel smaller.
Yeah, literally diminishing them to the point of insignificance. Like,
wow.
I wonder if that'll be a thing. That would be really kind of cool. Like, it'll be a cool way to make it sci-fi, but also make it real in the Marvel universe.
And to think they made it more terrifying in the comics with Pleasant Hill built on that idea. It's like, okay, well, what about instead of a secret Abu Ghraib prison, what we really have is a fake reality prison where everyone thinks it's like 1940s Pleasantville, and we literally rewrite your criminal mind into thinking you're something you're not.
That's messed up.
Oh no,
that's very messed up.
Yeah.
That's dark. That's like, whoa.
You know what bothered me? There's an inconsistency in Civil War. If you read Civil War alongside Frontline,
right,
with the prison itself, if you look at Mark Miller's prison, it is pristine and very Steve Jobs. It's very clean and it's very sterile. But then you look at Paul Jenkins' version and it's Guantanamo.
Yeah,
and you're like, this is not consistent. But I guess, like, at the end of the day, does it really matter? Like, they're both prisons. You're both being taken away from your home planet or your home reality and forced without trial to be imprisoned. Like, it's still kind of damning.
That's the other big thing. That's the hold without trial at any time.
Yeah, that's. I mean, and it's one of those things again where I feel like they painted Iron Man to be the bad guy, and especially in the movie, that's something that I'm really worried about. Is because I mean, number one, the movie's called Captain America: Civil War, so I feel like you already have a bias going into it that you should be rooting for.
Yeah.
But I really want people to walk out of the movie going, I don't know whose side I'm on.
Oh yeah.
I need to think about this for a bit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's not necessarily about Steve Rogers' Captain America, but rather who might wind up being Captain America at the end. That might be a thing.
Because that's another thing too. You get the feeling that Bucky should honestly stand trial for all the crimes he committed as Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
But he's like, but he's my buddy though.
That's like, that is so flimsy. That's like, I think the number one reason why I'm on Team Iron Man right now in the movies, because the trailer is painting it so that Steve's like, no. I know he's a good person, so it's cool.
So it's fine. And you know what they're going to do, because I'm sure if you picked up from Winter Soldier, they seek to imply in Winter Soldier that Bucky had a hand in the murder of the Starks. So,
he killed them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Straight up murder them.
It's like right there in the paper that Zola shows, and so you know that's going to be a major thing. Like, he was your friend from when you were kids. You built Pillow Forts. Well, he murdered my parents. Yeah. So what do you want?
Also,
and then
like,
tried to kill me.
Yeah, you guys also like fought in like maybe 8 months worth of a war, and you and I stopped an alien invasion one time. So
just say
if we're just stacking up like our chips here, I think I should be really more on your team.
Yeah, but you invented a robot that tried to exterminate the world. You basically only exist to clean up your own messes because all your villains just repurpose your own technology.
Now, I wonder if Ultron will be a thing. Like, if Ultron will be a thing where they're like, you did this, and you are responsible for it.
Well, that's got to be the smoking gun for Team Cap. It's like, well, Ultron was your fault, dude.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like maybe that's even where Tony comes in and is like, look, I know that this was my fault. This is why I'm on the side of, we gotta have some sort of registration in order because, I didn't plan for this, so I just want to make sure this doesn't happen again.
We need checks and balances, and I especially need checks and balances.
Exactly. He's very aware of his downfalls.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm just so brilliant. I don't know what I'll do next.
Speaking of checks and balances, they never really got it to full fruition, but I know when Jim Gordon took over as Batman, it seemed like that was a place they were going to go where it's like, no, I'm a vigilante, but I'm a vigilante who answers to a higher power. They didn't really do anything with it, but it was an interesting idea.
Then he immediately rebelled against that higher power.
Right away, yeah.
They took away his power, and he's like, no, I'm just going to take it anyway. And then just
taking my suit back.
Then. Okay.
It goes back to that thing about, I feel like it is almost a sense of power corrupting in that sense, where he's like, you know what? Never mind, I'm just going to be Batman.
Jim Gordon, the ultimate company man goes, no, I like being Batman. Give me my robot suit.
No, and I could probably do a lot better job if I had, like, I don't know, a trust fund of billions of dollars and maybe a secret subterranean lair. I don't know. I'm thinking about
a British butler.
Yeah, maybe maybe a servant to help me out every once in a while.
Sure,
maybe like 3 or 4 small children in bright costumes to follow me around.
Yeah, they'll really distract the bad guys so that I can punch them.
They're moving targets, so I can be safe.
That was, by the way, nothing crystallized the Robin as a target more than Tiny Toon Adventures when Plucky dresses as Batman and Hampton the Pig dressed as Decoy, who is in a Robin suit, but it's a literal target. I was like, oh my god, Robin is a target.
And the criminals are like, well, if we can't kill this small child, then we're bad at our job.
Yeah, I either aim at the big yellow target on your armor-plated chest, or the small zippy red target over there. It's amazing. Batman really is accountable. I think we really should be talking about Batman and his accountability. But
it's funny that DC. I mean, I'm sure they have, but they haven't really done it as much as Marvel in like a hero accountability story. Like I'm sure they've touched on it multiple times in things.
Yeah,
sure.
But they've never done like a Civil War thing where it's like, should DC heroes be forced to give their identities to Checkmate or whatever?
It's funny. I think it's just Marvel has a better name, and you can't.
That's what it is.
You can't do Civil War again. You can't do civil discourse.
Yeah,
that's right.
Civil War 2 coming out this May, I guess.
Yeah.
I know the Free Comic Book Day has a Civil War 2 prelude book.
Which apparently is really important because it tells you where everyone stands on the debate, which is quite interesting.
Yes, it does. And it also highlights the new issue, which is Minority Report. And if you're not familiar with Minority Report, it's a really underappreciated Steven Spielberg movie starring Tom Cruise and Max von Sydow. It's really cool. But no, it's also a Philip K. Dick story that is about surveillance and whether or not there is a price to pay for
crime.
Yeah, like pre-punishment, whether you should punish people before they actually
for crimes they haven't committed.
Exactly.
Yet. Now that is very much on team. You can't punish someone for a crime they haven't committed, even if they had all the intent in the world. You can't punish them. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, and this is something that came up in Captain America: Winter Soldier too, with the helicarriers. Captain and Nick Fury had that great exchange about I thought the punishment usually came after the crime, to which Fury responded, we can't afford to wait that long.
Yeah,
and we've created an algorithm that just by zeros and ones and how much of a threat someone is, and we'll have a floating death fortress that will assassinate you if we think you're going to become a trouble.
Even if you haven't decided that you're going to commit a crime yet, even if it's not consciously in your mind, we've predicted it in a way that we're just going to take you out just in case.
In a super advanced algorithm built by an immortal Nazi scientist.
And it's funny because with that in mind, I remember when Winter Soldier had come out and it was really cool and it was great and everybody liked it, and then they announced Civil War and I said, the best way to handle this is to have Cap be on the opposite side that he was on in the comics, where he's like, no, this is not the way to do it. And Iron Man being all about the free market and being like free enterprise and having literally been like, no, like my money and authority, my intellectual authority gives me all the right I need. Legitimately, I will fly into sovereign nations.
I am the Randian Superman.
Yeah,
I am exceptional, so don't police me.
I was expecting that to be the case, and it's funny how they definitely didn't do that with this new movie that's coming out, but
in the comic, Iron Man has switched positions now, and he's on the side of liberty and security.
Yeah, with Civil War 2, he's definitely been like, I learned something from this experience.
As he really should, because if he was still carrying the flag for the other team, it's like, did you not learn anything from the last Civil War?
Yeah, but my question is,
character development. Yeah.
My question is that as relevant than the previous one? Because pre-crime is a cool concept, and it kind of...
But it's still science fiction.
But it is really... you have to really boil it down to get to the real bones of the argument, which is, I guess, about surveillance and, this person... and associations. Because... And for me, nothing is better than the Drumhead episode of TNG, if you want to talk about associations and prejudgment. But,
sure.
But anyway...
I mean, I would agree that maybe it's not as relevant as what the first Civil War book was.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of an abstract way that it could relate.
Right.
Maybe they're saying it's related to some other concept. I don't know. It's difficult.
I think too that the pre-crime, like the person they're all going to be fighting over in Civil War 2 is an Inhuman whose power is he can see the future, and I guess he can see crimes before they happen. I wonder too, because they've already said the Inhumans will play a major part in this event, if they'll work in some sort of profiling thing in there too, and like the Inhumans will be a stand-in for that, because that's a major issue going on in America right now.
Right.
And I think it would be interesting to let the Inhumans be the center of that, because more than the mutants, the Inhuman allegory is kind of like the immigrant, where it's like we came from another place, we're living in New York in our own tiny little community, we try and go out to meet the rest of the world. Unfortunately, there's evil Inhumans who are kind of ruining it for everybody, and every day we have to say, no, that small group of Inhumans does not reflect the rest of it. Miss Marvel did that great, where she fights a villain and basically says it, oh my god, you're making it worse for the rest of us. Which is even better, because she's, a Muslim living in America, and that she's saying that about Inhumans is genius.
Yeah. So for me, the Inhumans are so unrelatable. Like I feel I'm like
you're very much an anti-Inhumanite.
Well, because for me, I have to pull the South Park and be like, X-Men did it. X-Men did that already. They created M-Town. They already did that. There was Utopia. We already had that. Genosha. The X-Men did it already.
Blown up now.
Because it's so weird. And this is just a digression about the Inhumans really quick. But they're still doing that thing where there's a cloud of Terrigenesis floating across the world. How not real is that? And how jarringly unrealistic, and how outpulling is it for the reader? Oh yeah, no, we have a thing like that exists in the world where it transforms people into cocoons. I am so sick of these gremlins getting the center stage of comics that because it's just an X-Men issue, and just all right, you want to push your Inhumans, and you want to make Iron Man fight not Captain America again, fine.
It's I guarantee it's solely because Marvel Studios doesn't have any.
It's literally because they don't have X-Men.
It's literally that.
Yeah,
we're making lemons out of the Inhuman lemonade, is what
I mean. And if you got to do it, I get it, and it's a neat idea. The idea that someone's literal power is he can see upcoming Marvel events, and should they get in the way of them.
Yeah. And I guess the biggest, if we take this to the broadest, most abstract level, I think what it's really representing is the idea of free will versus determinism.
Right.
Whether or not if this Inhuman can predict the future, is there any way that we can change that, or is it set in stone?
Is it Terminator rules, or is it Back to the Future rules?
Is it Terminator rules, or is it Terminator 2 rules? Because Terminator 2 is my favorite time travel movie, in that they're no, there is no even if I know, I have empirical evidence that proves that time is cyclical and there is fate. I, as a human, reject it outright and declare that there is no fate but what we make for ourselves.
It's a nice message that the future sequels totally dump all over.
Literally 3 is never mind.
Did we say that? Because what we really meant to say was Judgment Day is inevitable.
Well, because if Judgment Day is preventable, then we can't make $1 million movies about robots from the future. But clearly, based on the box office revenue for those movies, they shouldn't be anyway, because nobody cares. But yeah, self-determination is a really cool concept.
It's a great theme.
Is it a theme that you can make a summer blockbuster comic book story out of that has legs?
No. I don't know. It depends. I feel like people nowadays are... maybe we want more substance with the stories that we're getting, instead of having another world-ending catastrophe or
more
something.
Substance with our Flash is what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. We can have these great epic heroes fighting in awesome battles, but at the end of the day, they're literally just fighting over a philosophy.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it's interesting. I don't know if they could pull it off in a way that's going to make it interesting to other people, but we'll see.
Well, it's funny because Civil War was one of the first ones to kind of really, in recent memory, old school fans, but in recent memory, to kind of take the comic book event and turn it into a social issue, and make every event kind of about an ideology. Secret Invasion is a Cold War story, or an immigrant story, and Siege is about imperialism and and
an invasion gone horribly wrong.
Yeah, World War Hulk is about accountability and being culpable for your actions.
Reaping what you sow.
These are big ideas in what is essentially a superhero slap fight, and I wonder if we're kind of I don't think we're done with them. I think that's kind of cool. Like, I think that's really awesome for comic books, for the comic
Even
industry.
Pleasant Hill right now, like we said, is touching on a bunch of issues right now. Like Rick Jones is Edward Snowden in that story. He's a big governmental whistleblower who has been turned into an enemy of the state. Maria Hill is abusing her own power for reasons we're not exactly sure yet at the moment. And like we said, Pleasant Hill is just Guantanamo meets Pleasantville.
Yeah. Like, what if we treated them nicely, though?
Yeah, it's the opposite. Where it's like, what if we did the other thing? What if, like, horrible conditions? What if we just changed who they were? Would that be okay?
Yeah. By the way, why is Pleasant Hill not like an event like all the other ones? Why is Pleasant Hill an event in which we started with like a welcome to Pleasant Hill, then we had like Avengers Standoff Alpha, and we have another issue, and then the new Captain America book, which was actually a chapter in that epic, or in that story.
But only the Nick Spencer ones are the must-reads. All the other ones add interesting side stuff
right,
to it.
But it's weird that they didn't just make it like Pleasant Hill number 1, 2,
and it's
3,
funny, too,
4.
a lot of these new tie-in issues to that are clearly segmented, where it's like, okay, here's the story for those of you who have been reading it, and here's the tie-in part.
Right.
They're connected enough, but you won't be disappointed if you only read for one or the other.
It doesn't feel like a standard Marvel event.
They're trying something new with it, and I appreciate that they're trying something different with it. It's like, okay, this won't take over every issue.
Oh no, that's great. Like, I don't want to see
a damn
I don't want to see a damn like yellow sign over every issue of every book that I normally buy. But at the same time, I think that I feel like it would hurt sales, because it's like I don't know what issue to buy. Like, I thought I missed it because I couldn't find the Pleasant Hill logo anywhere.
Number 2.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's just a thing. Like, it's just another nitpick. But but yeah, like another question that I have about Civil War 2 is like, because the idea, we're kind of moving away from the contemporary issue, like the actual like thematic element. I wonder if it will be remembered. Like, I wonder if it will survive. Like,
or if it will seem like just, man, we really needed something to tie into this new movie.
Yeah. I mean, because the first Civil War book was very recent in terms of comic books, and it still became a very iconic event.
Yeah. And it's one of those, like, standby trades where it doesn't matter what bookstore you go to, they'll probably have a trade of Civil War there.
Even not, like, it's a book that non-comics readers are brought into. It's a book that literally, it came out, and then 10 years later, they made a movie about it. Like, it's that much of an icon in terms of comics. And then they're like, oh, and Civil War 2. And Bendis claims that it's not just a cash grab. It legitimately earns the name Civil War 2.
I remember, I think way back in the day when they announced Civil War 2, I think it was you, Sal, that tweeted something like, what a creatively bankrupt idea.
I did say that.
And at the time, it sure felt like it.
I mean, come on, because you can't just say, this May, Civil War 2,
that's
and expect everyone to stand up and cheer.
It's like coming this year to Kill a Mockingbird 2.
They did that, and it was awful.
Oh yeah, they did too, didn't they?
Yes, and this poor woman wrote this like piece of Americana, and then like No, let's not talk about To Kill a Mockingbird.
That's a whole other
I have
episode.
literally taught To Kill a Mockingbird to multiple classes over my teaching career, and it means a lot to me, and it makes me frustrated that really quick aside about To Kill a Mockingbird, the estate that took over after Harper Lee died, they are now making the like dirt cheap copies unavailable. They're like, we're not making those anymore. The dirt cheap copies that they used to just they didn't give them, but they practically gave them away to schools. The one that you remember where like it had duct tape on it because they've taught it for 30 years. Yeah, they're not making those anymore.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Because you got to buy the $13 copy.
Of course.
We touched a literary nerve there with Sal.
Yeah, well, it's an important work.
Coming out.
It's an important work. She just died, and her estate has been proving what scumbags they are. And it's like, it's an important work that because public schools are cheap and need to be, but also kind of are, what will be the result of a more expensive To Kill a Mockingbird? Will it be that they will like tighten their bootstraps and make it available, or will it be more like it'll be lost? Will it be lost to time? Like that sucks. Anyway, Civil War 2. But yeah, the question is, will it be remembered? Will it survive?
Yeah. I don't know. That's a tough question.
Yeah.
I guess to another interesting topic to get everyone's feel on it. I guess because now we know who's going to be on whose team. Should we talk a little about that? Obviously, Iron Man Team Pro, let's not see the future. Let's not do stuff like that. He has Sam Wilson, Captain America, on his team, who's obviously been shown to be very anti-SHIELD and anti-authority at the moment.
Yeah.
Sure.
Daredevil is on his team, which is ironic because if you'll remember during the original Civil War, Daredevil had that great bit where he's being carted off to the prison, and he's like, "Oh, sorry, I didn't have your 7 pieces of silver."
That's
Judas.
right.
I think that was I think that was kind of too on the nose.
I like.
Also, that was Danny Rand as Daredevil.
Oh yeah, that's right. It was
like people keep attributing that to Matt Murdock. I want there to be an issue of Daredevil where he's like, "That wasn't me.
That great line wasn't me.
I was in jail at the time."
That's right. He was Devil in Cell Block.
Yeah,
G.
but I think that was too on the nose. I like the line was, "Now you only have like 31. Now you only need 31 pieces of silver, Judas." I'm like, come on, like we get it. You don't need to just one or the other. You either call them Judas or you say the silver pieces. You don't do both. We get it. We're not stupid.
Black Panther is also on his team.
Yeah. Okay.
Black Widow is on his team. Deadpool is on his team, which that makes me feel like Deadpool's got to go somewhere because he's really popular these days.
Yeah.
Star-Lord is weirdly on their team, so that means the Guardians are going to be getting involved on this issue.
That's
okay.
a popular movie. Got to put Star-Lord in there.
That's what it is.
This seems to be one of those things where Star-Lord's like, this is too hot button an issue for me. I'm going back to space.
Yep.
Yeah.
I hope
Fun,
so.
Earth jerks.
Yeah, Earth jerks. We talked about how Spider-Man's going to be on the wrong side again.
I know, right? It's like, oh man, you think he would have learned a little something.
It's weird because now he's
quote unquote wrong side.
I mean,
yeah.
Well, it's funny because this one again, it's like no, every piece of fiction that has talked about pre-crime, says that it's bad.
Yeah.
That's kind of the science fiction thing. Also, Medusa is going to be on Captain Marvel's team, which means the Inhumans are going to be on that thing. We see no mutants in any of the other stuff, which makes me wonder. And I know one of the Civil War times is going to be X-Men.
Yeah, they are doing the crossover naturally.
So can we assume that means the X-Men are against it, not for it?
It'd be funny if they were like, if they went to the school and they're like, "How many of you have this ability?" And like 3 of them are like, "Me."
Who can kind of see the future? I can kind of
Little
see
Billy in the corner.
Yeah. I've been able to see it for a few months now. I'm sorry.
No one took me seriously, because I'm not an Inhuman.
Yeah, no one listened to me because
I can only see petty crimes. I can't see anything. Anything major.
I don't see Thanos, but I do see like Stiltman.
War Machine is interestingly enough on her team, but if you've been reading the Iron Man book, that might not actually be Rhodey by the time we get there. They seem to be maybe going to be giving us a new War Machine at some point.
I can say with authority that Rhodey is in Civil War 2
because he's going to be in the movie.
But like, yeah. But maybe there'll be more War Machines because like it's funny in the trailer, you know, they have that shot of War Machine like on the ground and Stark holding him, and then later they have like the airplane scene or the airport scene.
Yeah.
There's another like it's War Machine, but he has a different helmet. And you're like, oh, is he in like an exosuit? Is he in like a life support machine, or is it a different War Machine? I don't know. But I know that Rhodey is
automated War Machine.
There you go.
Yeah. Oh my God! He like it's like a neutered Ultron. Stark's like, look what you made me do! Oh.
What did you make me do this? This isn't my fault. You all pushed me to do this.
That would be nuts.
That'd be fit. James Spader comes back to voice it.
That'd be kind of cool. Did anybody else just feel like the Ultron character was just Joss Whedon?
Yeah, kind of a little
like,
bit.
Just
you pitched that theory many a times that a lot of what Ultron was railing against is what
Joss Whedon was complaining about during his tenure there. That'd be kind of fun. I would love to see the Russo brothers handling Ultron at that time, like being like, yeah, shut up, Ultron.
It's funny too that She-Hulk is also on Team Captain Marvel Authority because she was on Tony's team back in the day.
Yeah.
She's so happy-go-lucky, She-Hulk, and yet she always backs the Authority play every time. Maybe that's because she is out in her own identity and like who's gonna mess with the She-Hulk? Nobody.
That's
right?
true. Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah. Maybe it's all about like the context for the different people. Like, you know, it's like having a character who doesn't understand what everybody else is going through necessarily.
Yeah.
It's
also both teams have a lawyer, which is interesting.
Yeah.
have one side. So I would love to
settle
see
it in the court.
Yeah, like argue the legality of this and actually be able to cite precedent and everything. And, you know, Daredevil will be like, well, in no law written can we arrest someone for a crime they didn't commit. And She-Hulk's like, well, we can change that law, though.
I kind of really want to see that. Like, I kind of want to see, like, Walters and Murdoch battle, like, Civil War II in the courts, like, out of costume.
It's like everyone is fighting all around them, but they're just in the middle of the field just yelling at each other about legal precedent.
That'd be really cool. I'd be totally on board for that.
Really fun.
Yeah. Any other dark horses in that team?
Well, Cap and Winter Soldier are on Team Authority.
Yeah. Interesting.
But Sam is on the other team.
Right. They kind of teased in the new Sam Wilson Captain America #7 that there's many Captain Americas, that, like, you know, Sam, Bucky, and Steve are all Captain America. Do you think that they're going to turn Winter Soldier into Captain America? Because, like, this Man on the Wall thing didn't really work out.
No, it didn't. We've already seen, like, a new issue that's coming out. Like, I think it's the next one where it's just all three of them dressed up as Captain America going on.
Is Bucky wearing the old Bucky suit, like the Alex Ross suit with the gun and everything? He
sure is.
Okay, that's cool. Interesting. That's a question that I have for you guys, just because it came across my mind earlier, and I didn't really get to explore it very much, but multiple Captain Americas. They made a comment in the book where they're like, you know, we're all Captain America. And I remember somebody in one of our earlier conversations saying something like, well, I'm glad to see that there are multiple Captain Americas. Is that a thing? Should we have multiple Captain Americas that all represent different aspects of America?
There's no one true American dream for any one person. Even for me as a Canadian, the American dream is something much different.
Yeah.
So yeah, why not have a Captain America who's pro-authority, anti-authority, and then have Bucky who's somewhere in the middle?
Yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily a bad idea. It would almost like a multiple choice to be like, that's my America.
Right?
That guy.
Because how often did you see people in the Sam book who's not my Captain America, I didn't vote for, to the point where Sam's almost like, oh my god, you people.
People.
I love that. I mean, that was one of my favorite things with the Ant-Man book, where he's like, you're not really Captain America, though.
And because Nick Spencer writes that book, it was Nick Spencer tagging himself.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. I guess that is a cool idea, that there are different Captain Americas for different, like, representatives of America. But doesn't that then open the door for you to have like immigrant Captain America and like conservative Captain America?
Yeah,
and,
I mean, that's the future of Marvel.
They have
them,
the Grand
team
Dictator.
Of Captain America.
Is that what it is? Like, we'll have didn't I say, like, we'll have a Captain AmeriCorps of, like, but they would never work together.
That's fine. Newt can come in and be the voice of conservative Captain America. He already has the flag on his face.
That's right. Oh man.
Oh my god. That would be okay. Now if they did that, and then, like, Patriot's like, I'm also Nuke is like, I'm also Captain America.
Yeah, right.
And he has oh my god,
he's the wild card.
He puts on the Confederate flag, and he's like, I'm the real Captain America.
Oh no!
It's like, I'm gonna make Captain America great again.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Oh, come on.
That's a book.
You knew a writer couldn't resist that one.
Oh no, that's gonna happen.
Yeah. Ian McKee just reminded me of U.S. Agent. What about him? Where is he? Last time I saw him was in Civil War, like in one of the tie-ins after it was all over.
Where's Nomad? Where's the kid that Captain America raised from another universe? He could be a Captain America.
Yeah, we literally have 5 Captain Americas.
We gotta get like a Spider-Verse event for Captain America, so we can get all of the other versions, like Cap Wolf. We gotta get in here.
America Chavez, who in the future we see becomes a woman Captain America.
The MC2 American Dream Captain America.
The female Captain America who exists right now in the Spider-Gwen universe, whose son is her Falcon, which I think is cool.
The African American Young Avengers Captain America.
Oh yes, we were trying to figure out him last week.
Yeah, Patriot.
Patriot, yeah.
Yeah.
And his grandfather Isaiah Bradley, who was also cool.
That's right.
Old Captain America. Oh, man, there's so many Captain Americas. There's a Captain America for everybody. Man,
the more we think about this, the more, like, bankable an idea I think this is.
Yeah, this is. Yep, Marvel's like, thank you.
Marvel just sitting back and say, hey, we know what the next event is.
Capverse.
Oh boy.
But yeah, so all right, we're getting towards the hour, so I wanted to just toss it out there, gentlemen. Is there any kind of element that you have that we just didn't have a chance to cover from the Civil War thematic elements that you wanted to, like, get out there and talk about?
I think we did a pretty good job at covering a lot of stuff.
I think so. We kind of went over many different places. We didn't really answer any questions, but that's the point of the debate, is just to ask the questions.
Exactly.
And you answer the questions at home. And so
and the ultimate thing from Civil War, that even when that comic was done, it's like, hey,
it didn't end.
It didn't. The debate still rages on, and in fact, they lived with the fallout of Civil War for many, many years, right up until World War Hulk, when they all basically had to put everything aside and team up again to fight the Hulk.
Right.
They literally kept Civil War going, if you want to get technical, to the beginning of Secret Wars, when Cap and Iron Man literally fight each other as the world burns. They even did a Civil War tie-in. Did you guys read the Secret War Civil War tie-in? That was better than the original Secret. I think that was better than the old Civil War.
It was a fun story for sure. That's like, hey, what if the Civil War never stopped, and then they snuck a little Secret Wars in there at the very end?
That was cool. Yeah, They were like, don't worry about that. Yeah, that was a really cool story.
The only real villain is shape-shifting green aliens.
Yeah. Well, the real villain is like your own myopic viewpoint. Yeah,
it's true. No one talked to each other in that story. They just fought. They could never see it from the other guy's point of view.
Yep. Even when they said they could, like they were lying to themselves about it.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's
Although,
true.
interestingly, that story opened with them ready to do peace. They were ready to shake hands and have a peace talk. It was only then that it blew up and flared up again.
Yeah, that was a cool idea. I don't know. Civil War 2 has a lot of work to do.
It does.
It has a lot. It is an uphill battle. It's gonna be not only fighting its own, past and its own lineage, but it's also gonna be fighting against the movie and what that's gonna be talking about. It's gonna be a crazy book. I know that it's David Marquez draws a great picture.
Sure does.
Bendis didn't really get to write the core Civil War. He didn't even write the tie-in Civil War. He wrote he wrote like bookends, and he kind of implied it, and he laid the groundwork, and he kept it going afterwards. But he never wrote a core Civil War title. And I think Bendis is capable of doing it. I think he'll write a cool
there's
story.
the thing we haven't talked about. I know one of the issues many people have with the original Civil War is Mark Millar's style of writing, and that is everyone is very blunt and very angry all the time.
Yeah, I'm not a huge Mark Millar fan. But
here's how I feel about Miller. I like his movies better when he works with what's his name?
What's his name?
I'm drawing a blank here.
Is that the guy from The Kingsman?
He's Kingsman and Kick-Ass and all those movies.
Yeah. Is that Brian? Is that Michael? I don't remember.
Something Vaughn. I want to say.
Vaughn.
Yeah. When he works with him,
Matthew Vaughn.
That guy's optimism paired with Millar's cynicism, when they work together, they actually make magic. I think when they come together, because they balance each other out in a really meaningful way.
Well, it's funny. That's how I think real creativity comes. It comes from adversity, and it comes from challenging. You don't always get the greatest things in a vacuum.
It's true.
But
and when everyone's just saying yes to you, you get the Star Wars prequels.
You get Star Wars.
That's exactly right.
You get Star Wars. You get Dark Knight Strikes Again.
Yeah, you need someone to check your creativity sometimes.
That's right. Chickadee, check yourselves before you wreck yourselves, ladies and gentlemen. The lesson of today's episode of Elseworlds Exchange. I want to thank my special guest, Scott, and of course my co-host, Joel, for being here. If you are watching this episode live, we'll be rebroadcasting this episode on Friday. We're going to release it then. If you're watching this in the past or in the future, check us out. And gentlemen, what do you have coming up that you want to talk about and you're excited about and sharing with the audience today?
So coincidentally, on the Civil War talk, I recently did a podcast with author and philosophy professor Mark D. White.
Yes.
Which is super interesting. He wrote a book coming out called, it might actually already be out, called A Philosopher Reads Marvel Comics Civil War. And we just chat for an hour about Iron Man, Captain America, and Spider-Man, and the philosophy of utilitarianism and deontology and virtue ethics, and it's super, super interesting.
Yeah.
That sounds like a hell of a listen.
I literally listened to it yesterday. Really, it is spectacular. Give it a listen. It's on your SoundCloud.
Yep, SoundCloud and iTunes. It's the NerdSync podcast.
Nice. I will put a link to that in the description below this video. So check it out. Joel, what's happening, man?
Moments before we started, I finished my review of Black Panther #1 from Ta-Nehisi Coates. Yet again, another literary man, a journalist for The Atlantic and everything, a man who wrote books before writing comics. And I won't spoil my whole review. It'll probably be going up as soon as I'm done here. But man, what a literary comic that was. Like, he just uses words and descriptors where it's like, this feels fresh and new for me for comics. I think that book is going to be something special. I really do.
That's really cool.
Awesome.
He's a guy who pulls upon a lot of his experience writing about the state of Africa to write about the state of the very fictional Wakanda. And I think that's cool. There's a lot of rip from the headline stuff going on there. Check that out. It's Wednesday, which means a new episode of the Comic Multiverse. That's the show I do with Matt is up. You can listen to that. I hit 5K just recently in subs for me going solo.
Congratulations.
For the last couple months. Thank you. So I'll have a little video on that in the near future, and I should also probably do my Justice League versus Teen Titans review. People keep asking me for that, so that'll be up in the future. Lots of good stuff.
Lots of good stuff from Cape Joel.
Yeah.
We launched a new show called Comic Fights, where we do a little debate. We don't answer the question, but Tiffany moderates it and determines a winner. But you can continue the debate in the comments below that episode. It's a lot of fun. New one's coming out. It's going to be whether which one was more socially relevant, Death of Superman or Batman's Breaking the Back from Nightfall. This week we are releasing 0 Hour on back issues, and the following week we'll be doing JLA Tower of Babel. So stay tuned for that, and we'll see you guys next time. Another episode of Elseworlds Exchange. Scott, great job, man. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll see you next time. We'll see you in another episode.
Absolutely.
And from that, we'll see you guys next time. Thanks so much for watching.
Bye-bye.